Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to COASTER-net Update. Danny, we've got maybe some of the biggest news we've ever had here. So one of the biggest rumors we've ever had on COASTER-net Update. Danny, when I read this morning, I thought people were screwing with me. No, in fact,
I asked you if it was fake.
Yeah. Is this fake news? No, it's not. This is a legitimate rumor. It's a rumor, but it's by Reuters. Reuters is a respectable news source, very respectable when it comes to business and financial news. The rumor is Six Flags is going to buy Cedar Fair outright.
Or at least they've made an offer.
They've made an offer on the
Or
table.
an inquiry.
Or an inquiry into what the offer might need to entail. Danny, this is groundbreaking news. This is earth-shattering news. I don't think anyone expected this when they woke up this morning. I don't think anyone expected ever to hear these words, that Six Flags is going to buy Cedar Fair. Now, there's a lot to be excited about. There's a lot to be hesitant about.
Yes.
But I think generally speaking, me personally, I'm really excited about this. First and foremost, the idea of having a singular pass that gets me into basically every single park that I would want to get into, especially under the Six Flags structure of memberships, Diamond Elite. I have been enjoying my Diamond Elite Pass immensely this year. I've gone to Six Flags Great America more this year than I've ever gone in maybe the last 20 years. This is the most I've ever gone to Great America in one single year. I'm loving the pass. I love the offers that it gives me. I love the Fast Pass. I just talked to you on the pre-show about how I love the 50% off and how I go crazy with it.
Did you ever?
Danny, I'll tell you what. This has a lot to get me excited. Now, I know a lot of people, I've been reading a whole lot out there, Danny, that people are upset, that they're worried about, Cedar Fair, because they think Cedar Fair is so much better. But Danny, I'm going to be honest with you. The last few years, I'm not seeing the huge difference, the huge chasm between Six Flags and Cedar Fair anymore. I think Six Flags has improved their operations greatly and have made the guest experience very enjoyable, especially when I walk in with an elite pass and I get special privileges and what I want. I love their dining plan is better than Cedar Fair's dining plan. The only thing Cedar Fair has is the drink plan, which is far superior. And I think Cedar Fair's operations might be dropping down all these new rules, about putting people into particular seats, fast lane lines causing me to have to wait longer. There's a lot that I do not like about what's happening in Cedar Fair. So for me, I think that this comes at a very opportune time where I'm very favorable to Six Flags. If you have to ask me right now which pass I want more, I've already booked my Six Flags membership. I'm continuing to pay for it.
Yeah.
I have not bought a platinum pass yet. Maybe insightfully as well as we're coming up here, because maybe I won't need one for the 2020 season.
Well, yeah, that's certainly a thought. Pro tip, kids, by the way, make sure before you start YouTube shows that your computer is plugged in. That's why I disappeared there for a few seconds. I got the notification my battery was low. I never plugged my computer into the wall. So we don't have to worry about the show ending prematurely. But you make a lot of good points. Boy, there's so many things to talk about as we couldn't possibly cover them all in detail. I think there's a couple different things, and you and I have talked a little bit about this. Is it possible that maybe Cedar Fair is looking at selling off some parks and not all of the parks? We've talked about that. I mean, you brought up the point that the idea of selling all the parks altogether is not necessary. This isn't necessarily the first time this has come up with Cedar Fair.
No, you're talking about, this company was ready to give up, kid and caboodle, a little more than 10 years ago. And instead of throwing in the towel and selling off everything, Blackstone wanted them to sell off. And I know Blackstone's out of the picture right now. They went the opposite route and decided to buy all the Paramount parks. And that was an insightful move. They got a good deal on the Paramount parks. Paramount wasn't going bankrupt either. So some people have said to me today, well, why would Cedar Fair, why would Cedar Fair sell if they're still making money and they're still making profit? And I said, well, was Fox not making money off of their movies when they sold to Disney?
Right.
No, you sell when you're profitable or when your papers show that you're still doing okay, because you're going to get the best price for your company.
Right.
And so it leads us to maybe this discussion here of why sell now? Why is this? Before we get into the what is being sold, I think we need to address the why sell now issue.
And we have the answer.
What the what?
We have the answer, or we think we have the answer.
I think you might have the answer here, and it's not an answer that will be foreign to anyone who watches this show regularly, because it's what we've been talking about for the last 2 damn years.
We've been saying this for years. We've been saying this for years. Adam will appreciate that. So we've been talking for the last few years about the fudgery, if you will, and not necessarily illegal fudgery.
No, it's all legit. What they are doing is what every company does in business. They spin the numbers to make themselves look good.
Right. And we've talked about how, in the example of Kings Island, right? Build Banshee, 1% attendance increase. Not very good for a $25 million roller coaster. Build Mystic Timbers, $15 million roller coaster, 2%. Say, well, that's not too bad. Yeah, but you added Winterfest that year as well, too. So you added operating day. So 2%, maybe not what you're hoping to see out of that. Maybe you're hoping to be close to that 4 or 5% with that. But again, they continue to add Winterfest to other parks. They're continuing to increase
parks. They added new parks this year. They added new parks, and they increased attendance. People bitch about Six Flags doing it last year, but yet they don't bitch about Cedar Fair doing the same tactic this year.
Right, and they're also increasing your prices at the gate. You're increasing your prices for fast lane sales. You're increasing those things too. So your revenue is going up. That is true. Your attendance is increasing. That is true. This is the golden ticket thing, right? It's the most, and you're not doing the comparative. Well, if 100 people have ridden Millennium Force and only 10 people have ridden, Expedition G-Force, Millennium Force is going to rank higher because so many more people have ridden it. There's more opportunity there for it to be ranked highly. We talk about that all the time. If you are open for more days than the previous season, you're going to, even if your attendance is down on average per day slightly, you're still going to have more people at the end of the year when you just talk about raw numbers. So to me, what this says is Cedar Fair starting to realize, or are they starting to prepare for the fact that they can only make the season so long at most of their parks because most of their parks cannot be year-round parks?
Yeah.
Are they starting to run out of ways to extend the park season and starting to run out of ways to technically increase attendance but not having a good long-term play? Are they trying to get out while numbers look good? And again, when we say they're in trouble and they're having problems, they're not losing money. They're making money, right? Their revenue, their overall profits might go down, but you're still profiting. You're still bringing in revenue. Your revenue is more than your costs, your expenses. So you're still making a profit. It may just not be as large of a profit. We talked about that, with SeaWorld.
And it's stock market trouble. You're not looking good to investors anymore. And Cedar Fair recently has been and maybe not so recently, has been very, very concerned about what their stock price is, about how they look to stock investors. And yeah, they're still going to turn a profit overall. They're still going to make money. But if you're not pulling in record profits and making more and more money, and this is a problem with the stock market, that investors tend to pull out. They don't like your buy anymore. So this is when CEOs and people start losing jobs. is when they can't find new revenue streams. And Danny, they've tapped out pretty much everything. Can they physically sell more fast lanes? Maybe, but not a whole lot. Like at some point, they've kind of tapped out on hotels at Cedar Point. That's been 10% of their overall business.
Well, and you're going to start pricing people out of fast lanes and Cedar Point hotels pretty soon.
And you can start building hotels at other parks, and they're doing that at Carowinds. They supposedly maybe start doing it at Canada's Wonderland, although that's kind of not been talked about. I don't even know if they started that project. Maybe someone up there knows. I'm not really privy to that. They've talked about doing hotels other places, that hotels are a big part of their business, but that's not their core business either. So they're trying to expand. They're trying to find extra revenue streams. And the hotel
Sports Forest Park as ways of getting more people into the hotels that otherwise wouldn't be there.
And that's not going to work at a Worlds of Fun. You're not going to build a hotel at a Worlds of Fun and start generating revenue hand over fist. It's not just
no, because there's already so many hotels right across the street there. I mean, how are you going to draw away from there?
Absolutely. So I think you're absolutely right that yes, they may not be in trouble in terms of are they making money, but they might be in trouble in terms of are they going to look good to stockholders still? Are people going to be able to keep their jobs justifying their high paychecks from the board? And also, let's be very clear here too, that all of these good numbers are basically being generated by 4 parks. That's Cedar Point, Canada's Wonderland, Knott's Berry Farm, and to some extent Kings Island has a steady growth up. Those are your 4 main parks that are generating money. The rest of the parks, we don't know. We know Carowinds had a boost when Fury opened, but Carowinds has not been heard from since then. All the other parks are ghost towns for all intents and purposes from what we hear. So 4 parks are really running your whole business at this point. And at some point, something might have to happen. And I don't know if that's a complete sale. We're going to talk about maybe it's a partial sale later on. But a complete sale in my book makes a whole lot of sense because we see this all over the business world right now. I'm going to bring it up again. Fox and Disney, a huge merger of 2 huge companies. Disney goes in, buys out Fox because they want all that extra content. They want all those extra IPs. Six Flags could be doing the same exact thing for theme parks right in front of us here and making a big play that could pay off real big. I don't think them buying Cedar Fair is not going to pay off for them. Cedar Fair, they have solid parks, and the Six Flags model might benefit a whole lot of parks that aren't benefiting right now under Cedar Fair. Your Valley Fairs, your Dorney Park, your Worlds of Fun that are seeing minimal investments. All those parks we'll see if they could turn into big parks with a Six Flags type model.
Well, and that's the thing here. And you and I talked about this when we talked about the TEAs, the attendance numbers, some time ago. And we looked at the math because we knew what the Cedar Fair overall chain number was. Then we did the math and figured out that Knott's Berry Farm is like 4 million, right? Cedar Point, Canada's Wonderland, those were all around like 4 million each. And then Kings Island is like around 3 million. So when you put those together, that was like 15 million roughly across those 4 parks. And I remember the Cedar Fair number was somewhere around 25 million total. So that means between Carowinds, which I think is up above 2 million, Carowinds, Kings Dominion, you would think the Kings Dominion is somewhere between 1 and 2 million, maybe. So, say that there's another 3 to 4 million in there. That means your remaining Great America, Dorney, Worlds of Fun, Michigan's Adventure, Valley Fair. That means that you're splitting, and then your water parks, right? And I don't know if Gilroy Gardens is included in there, but that means you're essentially splitting up 5 or 6 million left amongst 6 or 7 parks. And some of those parks do not do very much at all. So when you look at that and how few people some of those parks are actually pulling in terms of numbers, that explains why maybe there's no investment going in there, but that's going to exacerbate the problem eventually. Because a park like Dorney Park, if you don't build anything, you're not going to get more people through the gate. So at some point, it's going to continue to fall off. From a chain-wide standpoint, even if you continue to increase attendance at your Kings Islands, your Cedar Points, your Canada's Wonderlands, your Knott's Berry Farms, and your Carowinds, at what point is that not going to make up for the losses at those smaller parks? So at what point is your attendance going to flatline? And we talked about that last year in 2018. You spent $50 million on 4 roller coasters in 2018, including the best steel roller coaster in the world. And your chain-wide attendance was what? Maybe 2% overall? That's not a good number. And again, you're increasing attendance, yes. So that looks good. You know, from the outside looking in, okay, you increased attendance 2%. But when you added Winterfest to some of your parks and you $1 million roughly, that's not a good number. That is not a good number at all. But because it's in the black, it still looks good to the shareholders. So at what point are you not going to be able to make up for those losses at those other parks with your increases at the big parks? The calendar is only 365 days long.
And I think these parks that we're talking about right now, I think they would benefit from a Six Flags season pass and membership structure, because the way that you look at a Six Flags Great America, Six Flags America, you know, these are all parks by big cities that aren't resort parks, that are regional parks that rely on that big city traffic. And a place like Worlds of Fun, right outside of Kansas City, is going to benefit from a Six Flags pass structure.
I think so.
Sell it to you cheap, and I'm going to get you in the park and upsell you on other stuff. Try and get you to buy a dining plan, trying to get you to buy this, buy that. Dorney is going to benefit from that. Carowinds would benefit from that. King's Dominion would benefit from that. All these parks are going to benefit from a Six Flags pricing structure of the Walmart model, is what I've always said, that Six Flags uses the Walmart model. Sell it to you cheap and get you in volume. And they're going to benefit from that, and that's how you're going to invest in them. A Cedar Fair pricing structure, that's why these parks aren't being served, because there is no benefit to, you sell them a pass, you get them in the park a few times maybe, and you forget about them. Six Flags wants you to come back, tries to sell you on other parks. You look at how close Dorney and Great Adventure are, there'll be some synergy there. Who knows what would happen in California? You know, Great America, or you got St. Louis and Worlds of Fun pretty close. So you can sell passes, and people are going to be using these passes at multiple parks. I'm telling you, this would set the world on fire.
And for the people who don't want the monthly payment plan, you can still do your gold pass.
Yeah.
And at some point, I mean, I paid $56 for my gold pass for 2020. I got it at Six Flags New England this past week. My uncle, Aunt Sue's husband, does not go to theme parks almost at all with us. Never really travels with us, but he was with us for the weekend to go do the Halloween, the haunted graveyard at Lake Compounce, and we stopped at Six Flags New England and got our passes. Got him a pass because it was $5 more expensive than the season pass, and it's good all through next year if he does holiday in the park or something, or you know, another haunt with us next year or something. You might as well, right? I mean, it's one of those things where, and now that gold pass option, if you want to pay at one time, you could double that to 100. You could triple that to 150. It's still cheaper than what the Cedar Fair Platinum Pass currently is. And you could probably triple the price of your gold pass and triple the price of most of your membership levels. And it's still a bargain.
People are saying, oh yeah, Six Flags is gonna, you know, own everything and raise the price. They don't have to, though. So Six Flags is not competing against other theme parks. Six Flags is mostly competing against other entertainment. They're competing against the movie theaters for the kids to go to them. They're competing against the Major League Baseball. They're competing against, you know, regional water parks and other things that you could possibly do and not go to the theme park. That's who their competition is. So that competition is still going to limit how much they can charge for a pass and still be true to their model. That has worked. That has absolutely worked for Six Flags. The get them in volume, that we can get as many passes as we can sold. That's the name of the game. So I don't personally think you're going to see, I think you're going to see the prices go up. They have to. Or I wouldn't mind paying a little bit more, but I think you're still going to have that general population where there are going to be people that only want to go to Six Flags Great America. They could care less who else Six Flags buys.
And you can still keep that price point there.
And you can't raise it too much, because those people are going to leave unless you're just going to sell them a park-only pass, which I don't think Six Flags wants to get into, because I think they want people. They want that synergy between Great America and St. Louis and maybe Worlds of Fun, and to get people, you know, at all the parks. Like even their membership program, their point system rewards you for going to other parks, gives you more points than if you went to your home park. So they want people to come.
Well, and here's the thing. If you were to think about how much would you pay, right? If Six Flags were to acquire the entire Cedar Fair chain, right? And I can get something that's the equivalent of my gold pass for Six Flags, where I get entry into the parks, I get parking to all the parks, and I get, you know, anywhere from 10 to 20% off merchandise and food. For me, if you quadruple the $56 price point that I just paid, $224, that's basically what a new platinum pass is.
And honestly,
and I would and I'm at that point, the price point's the same as the Cedar Fair Platinum Pass, and now I'm getting all the Six Flags parks on top of it.
Well, I'm looking up what my exact price is, because I don't know what it is, but
I think that's about what the Diamond Elite membership
Diamond
is.
Elite, I think, is like $21 or $22 a month, which probably equates to about between $250 $270.
Yeah.
So I'm already paying a pretty penny just for my Diamond Elite pass, and I think it's worth it because of all the extra stuff I get. You know, I just spent a whole 45 minutes talking about all the great stuff I get and how much I love it. And I'm telling you, you know, at the Diamond Elite level, you know, you continue that for that same price point into the Cedar Fair stuff, and I'm not going to have to pay that extra $180 for a platinum pass. Plus, I'm going to get all this extra stuff on top of it. I absolutely love this deal. I love the deal, and I love the idea of having a single pass to get me into all the places that I want. But Danny, I'm going to throw this out there to you.
Go for it.
What if Cedar Fair, okay? Because I think there's some benefit in merging, because then you merge the two companies. You know, people say, oh, well, there's no CEO of Six Flags right now. Maybe we met or Zimmerman becomes CEO. I don't know. You know, I don't know how the merger would work, and no one does at this point, because it's all a rumor. But you could merge easily, and maybe that's why they don't have a CEO right now, because maybe they had this in the works, had this plan. I don't know. I'm a conspiracy theorist at some point too. But Danny, let me throw this out to you. What if Cedar Fair doesn't sell off all the parks? That there's some rumors out there that maybe this snowballed, Six Flags buying everything. Maybe it's snowballed from Cedar Fair trying to sell a few of them. What if they only maintain their 4 main parks? I'm going to throw out 4 parks to you, Danny. And I think some of the people out there are going to start guessing. And I think number 1 is Cedar Point. Okay. Cedar Point's your flagship. You've invested a whole lot of money in the resorts. Six Flags has been trying to get into resorts. They've sent out some surveys about possibly doing resorts, but they really haven't entered into that market yet. So maybe Six Flags, maybe you want to keep Cedar Point. I think Knott's Berry Farm is another one for the same exact reasons. You're in your Disney market. You're in the resorts. Six Flags already has Magic Mountain. Granted, they're 2 completely different parks, as we said multiple times. Maybe they keep that one. I think Kings Island is another one, because you don't want direct competition to Cedar Point 4 hours away. So I think you have to keep Kings Island for this.
That was a big motivation to acquiring the Paramount chain in the first place.
Yes, that you don't want competition for Cedar Point. You could create synergy there, and I hate that word generally, but you could do an all Ohio pass. Like you've had Ohio tickets in the past. You could do an Ohio pass of, you know, Cedar Point, Kings Island,
and Geauga Lake.
And well, yeah. Oh, you brought up the magic word, Danny Miller. The magic word. But then this last one I'm going to throw out to you. And this is going to be a weird one because I think you're going to tell me Carowinds, right? Is that what you would guess?
Well, based
There's
off
one
of
of two.
right. Well, Carowinds would make sense because of the amount of investment that they've put into that park and the hotel that they've built. However, Carowinds is probably as valuable as it's ever been right now, which is why you want to unload that because maybe they've sort of completed the plan, right? Because there was this big expansion plan of Carowinds that included Fury, Copperhead Strike, the hotel. Maybe Cedar Fair doesn't have any future big plans for Carowinds, and they're going to sell while the stock is high on that park.
And Carowinds has not been doing well either. Yeah, I went to Carowinds over 4th of July weekend. The place was pretty much a ghost town compared to what it should have been over 4th of July weekend. So maybe that's not doing well. The one park that is doing really well is Canada's Wonderland. But I'm going to say no to that too. I'm going to say no to Canada's Wonderland. And you're going to be like, what the hell are you doing, Andy? Why are you talking about this? Because you're talking – and I think you're going to have to throw Six Flags a bone because why are they going to buy up all your problems? Why would Six Flags come in? Granted, I said that their pricing structure would probably work better at a Kings Dominion, at a Dorney Park, at a Worlds of Fun. But why would Six Flags take that risk and take all your problems off your hands? So I think you're going to have to throw Carowinds or Canada's Wonderland in there as a bone to give them a guaranteed win. And that is either one of those two parks, especially Canada's Wonderland, is a guaranteed win. That place is a gold mine. I'm going to say Cedar Fair should keep California's Great America, mostly because their investment in that park is far more than any of the other parks. They just spent –
and it's just begun.
They just spent a ton of money buying up that land. Granted, I've said in the past, I think it's a stupid move to invest in that park, but you can also create a California-like pass between Knott's and California's Great America.
Yeah.
Plus, on top of that, how much interest would Six Flags actually have in California's Great America? Because they already have Discovery Kingdom. So
so that may not be of great interest to Six Flags because the difference between Great America and St. Louis and Worlds of Fun, you have like 3 or 4 hours between there. When you're talking Great America to Discovery Kingdom, you're only talking an hour and a half here. It's sort of similar to like a Six Flags America and a Kings Dominion thing. It's more along those lines, or like a Dorney and Great Adventure thing.
But to me, I don't even think of Kings Dominion and Six Flags America being in the same market because you have two major cities and they're both outside. Like, granted, those two major cities are close. It's almost like that'd be like a Dorney Great Adventure thing.
Well, and Dorney Great Adventure both pull from New York and Philadelphia, so you still have two major population centers there. Whereas, yes, people are like, oh, well, San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, but it's like, yeah, but it's kind of all one big market.
And the problem is they just invested a ton of money into that park. Cedar Fair, there's going to be a high price tag on that park in particular that Six Flags may, once again, have no interest in buying. Plus, Cedar Fair is not just going to give it to you for free after spending all that money. That would be stupid business. So that might be one that they hold on to. So I think those are the 4 parks. And you can talk about Canada's Wonderland and Carowinds. There's merit to owning both of those as well. But I think those 4 parks are probably, if you weren't to sell the entire kit and caboodle, I think those are the 4 parks that you keep out of the deal. And Danny, I don't know if I'd buy a platinum pass, but I'm buying a gold pass, especially if you have an Ohio-only pass. I'm buying that pass. And then, every 3 or 4 years when I go out to California, then I'll buy whatever is out there, So I think there's a lot of merit to say maybe Cedar Fair gets rid of everything else and just focuses on the 4 parks that are doing really well for them. Why? And you can build up those areas. Kings Island has a ton of space. You can do a ton of stuff at Kings Island. Knott's Berry, you don't have a lot of space, but you have the history. You have a proven market. It's doing well for you. And then you can do whatever you want with California's Great America.
So then so if Cedar Fair gets rid of Valley Fair, what do they become? because they can't stay Cedar Fair, right? Because Cedar
Cedar
Fair.
Point Incorporated. Just call it what it is. Everyone calls it. Like, people were criticizing me on one of the previous. Why do they keep calling it Cedar Point? Because that's who's important. Shut up. Stop crying. That's who's important. Like,
No, I think I think we've made some good points here, and I
how
think
about Cedar Farm?
Cedar Farm. Well,
Because those are the two main parks here. I know Kings Island will be.
Cedar Farms.
All the Kings Island fanboys will dislike that, but whatever.
Yeah, well, not
They're still
point.
crying over their Kaiga coaster.
Not point. But I mean, I think there is. If you're a big fan of a Cedar Point, Kings Island, those big parks, those 3 or 4 big parks, this probably concerns you because you don't want to see Six Flags come in and change what Cedar Fair is doing at these
I don't
parks.
even understand why, because what Cedar Fair is doing, from my perspective, is not all that amazing. Like I said, I've seen.
But I think
between the two.
But I think the big concern is that Six Flags has not been going to like B&M for the big coasters. They're
Not
doing
true. They just put in West Coast Racers.
No. I know West Coast Racers was a big monetary investment, but we talked the other week. Six Flags hasn't built a B&M since X Flight.
Who gives a shit about B&M at some level? Like all the RMC fanboys are going crazy over everything they do. People are going crazy over, and how many times have we said this, that we're going crazy over all this little stuff? Nobody wants a B&M, so don't sit here and tell me now all of a sudden, all you fans out there, that now.
Well, that's the ironic part, right? Because people are going nuts for all these little rides, and now all of a sudden they're complaining about this.
Oh, we're never gonna B&M. We haven't had a B&M.
Yeah, and those same people are the people that are shitting all over Orion and are shitting all over, all the other B&M rides.
Raven, people shit all over that ride for how long?
Yukon Striker, all Val Raven with a loop. It's those same people who are now flipping the narrative, right? So that's one concern, right? But when you from the other parks like your Dornies, your Valley Fairs, your Worlds of Fun, those may very well benefit from being under Six Flags watch. You may actually see rides being put in as opposed to trash cans in restaurants. But seriously, so there's a lot of pros and cons here. There are things that Cedar Fair, I think, is better at than Six Flags. There are things that Six Flags is better at than Cedar Fair. I think in some ways it comes down to your preference as well as to whether or not you think this is a good move or not. Generally, I think
Danny Miller, because there's a lot of people out there that hate on Six Flags for no valid reason, based on news stories, that they hear a news story that somebody got beat up at Six Flags America 5 years ago, but they ignore that people get beat up during Haunted Carowinds every year. Nobody cares about that because we just turn a blind eye to it. So it's prejudice, Danny Miller. It's prejudice against Six Flags.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of things that Six Flags does not do well. There's plenty of things that Cedar Fair doesn't do well either. There's a lot of things that both of them do a nice job at. I think the difference between Six Flags and Cedar Fair is vastly overstated as to how Cedar Fair is. People are like, oh, Cedar Fair is so much better than Six Flags. Generally speaking, that is the majority opinion. The majority opinion is that Cedar Fair is better than Six Flags. And I think that the difference between the two is vastly overstated. And when you think about the price I'm paying for my Platinum Pass at $190 versus my Six Flags Pass at $56, when you start to look at the value, I think that at least makes it even in terms of the value I'm getting for my money. Generally speaking, I do prefer. I think I do tend to have a slightly better experience at. I do tend to enjoy my experience at Cedar Fair parks a little better than Six Flags, I think, generally speaking. But at the same time, I'm paying 4 times more money for my Cedar Fair pass. And I don't think that my experience at Cedar Fair parks in general is 4 times better than my Six Flags experience. So when you put that through the matrix of entertaining the guests, at what point is Six Flags actually the better value? I think certainly at my price point, 190, I think Six Flags is the better value, even though my overall better experience might still be had at the Cedar Fair parks. I enjoy my time at the Cedar Fair parks more. However, the value, I think, is there more at the Six Flags parks. Now, if I were paying close to $200 for my Six Flags pass, then I would say I enjoy Cedar Fair way more. But
Danny, I can't even say that anymore because I go to Kings Island this past weekend, and I go and I have a dining plan, and I go to their new barbecue restaurant, and I get pulled pork, half of which is pure fat, with fat streaming down because the table was tilted, fat pooling down at the other side of the pan. Then I go to the chicken place over by Banshee that was really fantastic when they first opened it, and I got chicken that was almost inedible this past weekend. And I just think to myself, I go to Six Flags then on Sunday, and I go get a burger at Johnny Rockets. It's fantastic. I'm able to get a whole side of onion rings for $2. Fantastic. And maybe it's items that I'm choosing, but at some level, my experience in this one little realm of area of food that people like to tend to talk about Cedar Fair being so much better, and yet Six Flags meal is light years ahead of what I got at Kings Island's brand new restaurants. This barbecue place opened up 2 years ago. The Cedar Point barbecue place opened up this year, and I think it's garbage. That I don't even know how they serve the food sometimes to the people, that it's so bad. So these perspectives here, I think people, like maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you asked me if Cedar Fair was better, I'd say absolutely. But I'll tell you what, ever since Dick Kinzel left, and you can sit there and say whatever you want, 2013, ever since he left, there has been a steady decline in the Cedar Fair experience for me every year, going down. And I think this year it's at the bottom it's ever been. That I don't look forward. I don't seek out. I'm at the point, Danny Miller, where I don't even know if I'm going to buy a platinum pass next year, because I have no desire to go and experience things that irritate me. I don't want to be told to sit in what row. I don't want to go and eat bad food that when I pay, $200 for a dining plan. The only thing I think they've done really well over the last couple of years is the drink plan, having the disposable cups. I think it's the only thing that they've done exceptionally well. Fastlane has been annoying to me more and more as they push it more and more and sell it more and more. It's impacting my day more and more because I'm certainly not paying $150 to buy a Fastlane on a platinum pass. You may do that. That's fine. I am not doing it. So my time at Cedar Fair is being greatly diminished, where I would rather go to Six Flags, pay roughly the same amount for the pass, get better food, get 2 free fast lanes every time, get 50% off of everything in the park, have a great time, and walk out happy versus walking out of Kings Island on Friday night and saying, what the hell did I come here for? Which is what I did.
Yeah, and I mean, last year I went to a bunch of Cedar Fair parks and a bunch of Six Flags parks. This year I voted. And part of that is also due to taking the big trip, but at the same time, when you look at this year, I went to Canada's Wonderland for an ACE event. I went to Carowinds for a Coaster Crew event, and I went back the next day for a few hours. I didn't go to Cedar Point this year. I went to Kings Island for one day when we were visiting my brother. Didn't go out to California this year because I went last year and went to both parks. I haven't been to Dorney Park this year. Last year I went on the last day of the season went to the year at Dorney Park just for a few hours. I have no reason really to go to Dorney Park these last several years. Last year we went to King's Dominion, Twisted Timbers open. I went twice. This year, didn't go to King's Dominion at all. Twisted Timbers, wonderful ride. Intimidator 305, wonderful ride. And I said back in February, I will not walk through the gates at King's Dominion this year because I am going to vote with my feet. I voiced my displeasure on Facebook very politely on their Facebook page at my displeasure with the decision to remove Volcano. And I said, and I will not be walking through the gates of that park in 2019 because I am going to, people say, well, if you don't like it, don't go. So for at least 1 year, I'm not going to go. And the Dueling Dragons thing. Historically, I've gone to Florida almost every year, almost every other year. I went last year in September for Haunt, went to Busch Gardens, went to SeaWorld while my Platinum Pass had still yet to expire. I did not go to Universal. I have not been to Universal on my last 2 Florida trips, which were both in September, because I've decided to vote with my feet and not spend the money to go to Universal the last 2 times because I am very upset about a decision they make. I will go back to Universal someday, sometime soon, I'm sure. They've opened a couple new rides since I've last been there. I will go back there eventually. But it's, again, it's not that I'm never going to go to that park again. It's not that I'm never going to go to the parks that I'm unhappy with, but I'm going to space out my visits a little bit more when they don't continuously give me a reason to go back. And that's the whole thing here, right? I don't still call it my home park. But I don't go repeatedly over the course of the year. I struggle to get there once a year because it's been several years since I've been given a reason to go back there. And for at least 1 year, King's Dominion gave me a really good reason not to go. So I didn't go this year. And when you look at Six Flags, I didn't go to Great Adventure this year. Same thing. They haven't given me a reason to go in several years. We didn't even do the Ace event. I went to Six Flags New England because it was near Lake Compounce and I could get my discounted season pass up there. Went to Six Flags America and not King's Dominion. They kind of gave me a reason to go, even though Firebird, whatever, but haven't been in a few years. Something a little different. Okay, I'll go. It's sort of that logic. But again, even though I only went to 2 or 3 Six Flags parks this year, I'm not feeling like I wasted my money because I only spent $56 on my pass and they ding you for $25, $30 at the gate for parking every time you go. So I still feel like I got a tremendous value out of my Six Flags pass.
And maybe I would be a little bit more concerned if Six Flags hadn't made recent decisions, one of them being putting in West Coast Racers, which was a huge investment into Magic Mountain. That settles my mind a little bit. In terms of maintenance, they just repainted Georgia Scorcher. They just repainted Superman. So they're investing money in making things look nice. So
things that we've been asking for years.
Which we've been asking for, and they're doing the stuff, yet people are still bitching and moaning about Six Flags. They're making the parks look better. They're adding different events. They're doing different things.
They're RMCing the rides that people want to see RMC.
Exactly. Like Holiday in the Park, I did for the first time at Great America, had a great time. They're doing all the things I want them to do. They're listening to the people, responding to the people, making changes for the better. Are they perfect parks? No. But don't sit there and tell me that they're so far much that they're cesspools compared to Cedar Fair, because they're not. That's a gross misrepresentation. Cedar Fair has nice parks. Six Flags has nice parks. And right now, I just currently think that I enjoy Six Flags better on the whole. If you were to tell me and hold a gun to my head and said, which chain do you like better? Six Flags is my answer. And if someone was determining if I was telling the truth, that would be the honest to God answer. So, Danny, I think the only question left here, there's only one more question. One more question. Who gets the first Batman? Because Snoopy's out, baby. Looney Tunes is in. And Justice League, you can start building. You're going to get Justice League dark rides all over the place. You want it?
I'll tell you what, Cedar Point, you're going to get that dark ride you've been wanting for many, many years now all of a sudden.
The Justice League dark ride going to go into Cedar Point. There you go.
Oh, my gosh.
Could you imagine? Right now.
Could you imagine?
I think it's hysterical. Gemini becomes Two-Face. I don't know. That's the only thing. You know, the Paramount parks have such shitty ride names anyway. You can rename everything in those parks to something. You could make Two-Face. You have in Vertigo at Kings Island. You could make that Two-Face again. You know, like it wasn't.
You could. Oh my God, you could.
You could. You could bring back.
That's funny. Which is running a Stinger train, by the way. Now.
Yeah, there you go. So, you know what? I think people need to settle down. There's a lot of excitement to be had. You can go cry in your, spilled milk or whatever you want to do if you want to continue to cry about how bad Six Flags is. Maybe you haven't been to Six Flags Park in years and you should probably go because they're fantastic places to spend the day. So we will keep you updated here on what's going on with Cedar Fair. This exciting news. Will it happen? Who knows? Who cares? It was fun talking about it.
I mean, we talked about it when Six Flags supposedly was interested in taking the Busch parks. Maybe Six Flags is just asking all the chains if they want to sell their parks until they find someone who obliges.
The weird part is the rumor that Hershey was going to come in and buy the Texas parks. So is there just like this constant dialogue of someone trying to buy someone else? And maybe there is. Maybe they're constantly.
Six Flags was like, hey, SeaWorld, you want to give us some of your parks? No. Hey, Premier Parks, you want to give us some of your parks? Okay, we'll take that one. Hey, Cedar Fair, you want to sell any of your parks? Like, Six Flags is just going around knocking on the door of all these other places, just seeing what they can get. In a way, that might be what they're doing, right? Because we've heard the Six Flags Busch Gardens rumors. Six Flags actually got some parts from Premier Park, and now Cedar Fair. I mean, next thing you know, Six Flags going to be knocking on the door. Universe, hey, you want to give us that new park you're building?
Hey, stop building it. We'll just do it ourselves. We'll just build it ourselves.
And they're building overseas.
Yeah. So it's an exciting time to be a fan. And I'll tell you what, I love saving money too. So that's
don't we all?
Having all these passes is getting ridiculous. So I need something.
Yeah, the lanyard weighs almost as much as me.
Yeah, this is the thing that needs to happen. So as always, I am Andy Romarchek from Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, right, Warriors.
See you next time, guys. Thanks.
And you better not call Raptor Batman. That's where I draw the line, Danny. That's where I cut this deal off.
No, it'll become Hawkeye.
Oh, God, that's even worse.
No, you can't do that. That's Marvel.
That's where I vote no on the merger.
No, it'll be Hawkman. Hawkman's DC. Raptor can be Hawkman.
Out of here. No. That's where I draw the line.
Gonna have to repaint your room.
Oh.